Hello again, and thanks for staying with us. So the country is waiting with bated breath for Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's budget speech later today. The National Planning Commission has on numerous occasions now called for economic reforms in order to grow the country's economy. But challenges such as load shedding continue to hamper their efforts at stabilising the fiscus. Let's understand this issue a bit better. Bring in Ravi Naidoo, who's with the NPC, joining us now via our video link. Ravi, it's lovely to see you. Thanks for making time for the AM report. So the NPC was put together in 2021, if memory serves, by the President in order to give some kind of nuanced understanding of the country's challenges. I wonder whether you can give us a snapshot of the kind of understanding you've been able to establish, given just how complex some of these challenges are.
Thanks very much, and very good to be on the show. So the NDP, the National Development Plan, was published in 2012, actually, and the Planning Commission was set up about 2010. So we are now in the third National Planning Commission. So this group of commissioners, including myself, was appointed in 2022, so last year.
Right.
And so the NDP is the document, the program that influences what the government is supposed to be taking forward in its medium-term strategic frameworks, and then obviously the budget, where the Minister of Finance talks about where the money goes. The medium-term expenditure framework gives expression to that whole plan. That's why you often have government documents and so on. They start with the NDP. So the NDP is sort of overarching thing. The Planning Commission is already from outside of government. And what it was looking at was how to grow the jobs through economic growth. So that was a core thing, what the country needs to do for that. A key aspect was to have a capable state, because the state plays a key role in rolling out things, and the importance of education and skills development for the long-term growth. So a number of things, but kind of coalescing around those three things. And what we've found in the last 10 years, and we as new commissioners, I suppose, have maybe a bit more of a license to look at it, is that, wherever the plans were heavily predicated on the government doing this and the government doing that, it's really struggled. It's really struggled because the capacity has not been there. So we're looking at, obviously, how to improve the capacity of the state, the professionalization of the state, but at the same time, we have to also get things moving now. So that's looking at how the private sector and communities and individuals can be mobilized to play a role in the country's growth path.
Yeah. How does that then inform your expectations of today's budget?
So, obviously it's very important for the finance minister, I think, who is a very competent person and I think is a straight talker, to deal with the reality, which is what is he going to say to, let's say, help small businesses, individuals running small businesses to get on with the job of small businesses. So are there going to be tax amendments to help small businesses? Because we think we are really under strength in the number of small businesses we have. We want to see the extent to which he's going to help unleash the potential of the private sector on the renewable side. So will municipalities be able to procure, power from solar rooftops from households and businesses? So what will be the incentives that have been sort of hinted at by the president, and how those can be done? So really looking at what he will do to unleash the potential of those outside the state, and also looking, I think, to see what is going to be said about problems within the state. How are we going to get more quality for the spend that we are making from the government itself?
Interesting.
So
you
those
say
two
that.
blocks. Well, one is really looking to see what is being said that is meaningful in that regard.
Yeah, interesting you say that, because there's always this ongoing debate in this country, isn't there, and perhaps in many other countries, around the extent to which we allow the private sector to essentially take on or take over from where government has failed. I wonder whether, as commissioners, you've been able to kind of strike a balance around where we are in this country and where we need to be, given how urgently we need to solve many of the issues that we all know of.
Yeah. So since this commission was formed in 2022, this third commission, there's two things we've done. One is we did an advisory on load shedding with the president, and I think that's what he's taken forward as a base of his announcements to unlock private sector potential. But the second, because we know we have to have a functioning state, certainly in the longer term, is we've looked at a framework for the professionalization of public service to ensure people of merit are being appointed, and so on. So, but that's a long-term issue to rebuild the state. The question now is we can't afford to have load shedding continue because it costs the country R1 billion a day and more in terms of opportunities lost. So the question now is, definitely we need the government to play an important role, and state is quite critical. But there's a huge amount of money. South Africa is a G20 country. There's a lot of resources, a lot of investment potential. Can we build, for example, a solar and renewable sector out of our crisis? We can be an exporter of solutions and technologies. Lots of people are putting solar on their roofs. Businesses want to do it. Companies are now doing their own embedded generation. Can we make it our industry? Employ thousands and maybe millions of people in installing and maintaining and manufacturing. So there are opportunities even from our crisis that we could become a world leader. So, I think with the right leadership and imagination, we could do it. And the Minister of Finance plays an important role because he's encouraging the private sector to join the government and bring those ideas and capacities and their money to help. Because the government, as you know, the Minister of Finance's problem is he doesn't have the fiscal space to do all the things he ideally would love to do as the government.
Speaking about imagination, South Africa has also been saddled with this issue for quite some time, this conversation around a skills mismatch. Just this week, we're reading headlines around how there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, in fact, of graduates who are applying for this 350 Rand social relief of distress grant, which suggests to us that these are people with qualifications sitting at home with zero income. Are we kind of running out of ideas when it comes to how we solve that particular issue? And I ask, keeping in mind that perhaps even the minister may be able to say or do something to contribute to that solution.
Yeah. So the first issue, if you want to employ graduates, and it is a bit of a tragedy. So graduates are the most likely to get employed, but the fact that you have 12% of the graduates unemployed means that the economy is not growing. So we know economic growth has not been there, and and because we haven't done the economic reforms that we need to for the last number of years. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of the higher education spend, and remember now, we spent 440 billion Rand last year on government education and government training. And one of the things is how to connect some of that, especially the higher education side and vocational side, to private sector employment. So, you can have a degree, but have you had any quality work experience to make you employable, at least for your first major job, even a part-time job, but something to prepare you. And we haven't really connected the institutions of learning on the public sector to industry. So I think that's very important. And the third, I think, there are opportunities now to say, because of all the technologies that we can see in our lives that are coming through, there's a chance also for some of that to help people, and we're going to think about how we interact with these new technologies, because there are opportunities for people to be supported and to become more employable connecting to those technologies. But it requires a lot of imagination, and I think a lot of partnerships, because the government institutions themselves are too slow to keep up with the technology changes. And I think that's where a partnership could work a lot for the country.
Yeah. It's difficult to speak about the NPC and not speak about Operation Vulindlela, which was this all-encompassing, let's say, roadmap, really, to fixing some of the country's complex problems. Among the 5 priorities was also reforms in the water sector, in order to increase investments and maintenance, etc. Of course, over the past few weeks, we've also seen several regions in the country struggling to recover from flooding. I wonder to what extent that's complicated your work in that regard.
Yes, so Operation Vulindlela is different to the National Planning Commission, but we work very closely together. They are very much a delivery team for the president, and I think they help a lot by helping to prioritize within the administration, with the actual state machinery, certain things that must be done, and they play a key role. So water, you're absolutely right. Water is, as I think is popularly known as our next ESCOM. It's already here, in a way, in terms of the problems. And we have to look at how we can, deal with critical infrastructure that's holding up agriculture and affecting certain municipalities, as well as some, and that's the pipes basically, but as well as some of the regulations that are also a problem. So in terms of the water licensing and just the administration of those, that can be that is very important. So I think water is the second priority on the infrastructure side, perhaps after Eskom and energy, but it's very important, particularly for certain sectors, and generally as we find that climate change kicks in, quite important at certain localities.
Right. Ravi Naidoo, thanks for your time. Really appreciate your insights on the AM report today. Ravi Naidoo is a commissioner with the National Planning Commission. Thanks once again.